Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. I am your host, Dino DeCespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
Feeling all right, buddy. We got some big news on our side of the pond in terms of rosters. You and I obviously always love talking rosters.
Mm-hmm.
We got to watch a little bit of football today, trying to in the background of work, have to squeeze in a match after work. So, the football, it never ends. It's just constantly ongoing, gives us something positive to look at in this grimy world that we're currently living in.
I agree with you on all fronts. Super grimy, but tons of football. It definitely softens the blow. It's kind of nice to having Europe happening, NWSL warming up, got some international stuff going. And I think we're going to hit on, all three this episode. So I'm definitely excited to get into it. Where do you want to get started?
Let's start on our side of the pond. SheBelieves Cup. The roster came out. Names were put on a list. And if there's anything we love at the Into the Channel podcast, it's football names being put on a football list before any ball is kicked. And we get to talk about it first.
Love it. Names on a list. Cause for celebration.
Excellent. I think it is. Sounds delicious.
Yep. On your side as well. Cheers.
Cheers to you. So I thought I like the makeup of this roster. So I'm just going to start with that. Yeah, I think there were a couple names in each position group that jumped out. Maybe we'll talk about keepers. Maybe we won't. Maybe keepers will get mad. Maybe they won't. Who knows? That's the thing about goalkeepers. You never know how they're going to react to any situation, really. And that's why we don't really do much analyzing of what they do, because how the hell are we supposed to know what a goalkeeper's doing or thinking at any given time? But again, I digress. So let's start with some players that I was happy to see. I'm going to start in your backyard so I can kick it to you pretty quickly here. Emily Sams, 25 years old, your Orlando Pride center back, the best defender on the best defense in the NWSL. I like the trajectory. She was a training player for the send-off match before the Olympics. She was then named as an alternate to the Olympic squad. She gets added to the Olympic squad because of the Macario injury. And then she was in the squad for, I think it was the last group stage match and maybe the quarterfinal match, even though she didn't appear. But because she was in those squads, she qualifies, gets her gold medal. And she just has to be a part of this team moving forward. But let me shut up. How happy were you to see Emily Sams on this roster?
Very happy. And I think Emily Sams definitely the type of player that kind of has the so good we can't keep her off the roster or keep her out of the lineup kind of vibes to her. I mean, I think we just kind of saw what she was able to do in the league this year. Defender of the year in the NWSL, obviously winning all the trophies. No Naomi Girma on the back line as well for this roster. So I think with that big chess piece, out of the game, for SheBelieves, I feel like Emily Sams almost has a chance to kind of, not necessarily step into Girma's shoes, but make a big impact, leave a lasting impression, kind of cement her place on this team, perhaps or probably as Girma's running mate. So definitely excited to see Sams on this list.
Yeah, great point. I was thinking something similar. You have Tierna Davidson, who's going to be there. She'll partner with Sams. And obviously, we know Davidson was often Girma's running mate in those back lines. Mm-hmm. So now it's just Sams almost naturally steps into that Girma role. I think she'll fit right in.
Yeah, 100%. I did a little exercise. I saw that the roster came out. I didn't look at the roster. So I was like, let me play a little game, jot down some names. I wrote down 29 names.
Okay.
So of the 21 field players, I had 17 of the 21 on my list. The 4 that I didn't have, actually, the first one I want to talk about, Tara McKeown, obviously deserves to be there. Great season, super versatile player. What do you think she could bring to this team?
I thought she had an awesome season. I think this is year 2 of her after the conversion from forward to center back. I think it was after the 2022 NWSL season that she converted. So scrappy, is an iron woman out there. I can't remember the short list. I want to say it might have been 7 or 8 players in the league who played the full 90 in every match of the season. I love her passing ability. I think some of those skills that she had as an attacking player, they translate to how she plays as a center back. And even though she doesn't have tremendous size, the toughness is just off the charts. She'll be a great addition there. And I think if you are looking for toughness quotient, her plus Emily Sonnet, I think you got that covered.
I'm so glad you brought up Emily Sonnet, because when I think about McKeown, her versatility, and her experience playing different spots on the field. And this isn't the same 18-player roster that we had in the Olympics. 23 gives you a little bit more leeway, but you always want to have players that could fill different spots on the field.
I feel like if you're Emma Hayes, and we might be doing just some real basic eye test stuff, but if I'm Emma Hayes, I think I just have 25-year-old Tara McKeown just follow Emily Sonnet around. Just look at her habits, look at the way she trains, look at the way she thinks about football, and then, kind of form your own path, be your own player, but see what you can pick from Sonnet's game, because I think there are some good similarities there.
Love that. A couple other players that were surprises on my list. Well, actually, before I get to that, did any players stick out to you as you're just like, oh, okay, they made the roster. I like that, but I wasn't expecting it.
Players that maybe I wasn't expecting. Michelle Cooper, I would say, from Kansas City Current. I went back to double check some of my game notes from the season. I hop into the old Google Drive, search Michelle Cooper to look. In one of my game notes, I simply had the note, Michelle Cooper will run your ass over. Because that is exactly what she will do on the wing. She is not shy about that. She will play physical, 22 years old. This is her first call up to the national team, but she does have experience for the U.S. youth national team. Still, congrats to her on this call up. Just absolute toughness, 3 goals, 3 assists in the 24 NWSL campaign. And she basically just grabbed that starting 11 spot like right around May 18th and started all but one of the remaining 17 matches, including their 2 playoff appearances. I like the way she played. Now, there were a couple moments, kind of looking back in my notes, trying to remember some specific things. She had a couple tricky moments where she was trying to pass the ball backwards, got herself and her team into a little bit of trouble. But even in my notes there, I was like, I just don't see her doing that often because she's very clearly a smart player too. So I was surprised and pleasantly surprised that she was on the team.
Yeah, same here. I really like her game. And I think just her physical profile, not something that the U.S. has in attack. Like it's That's just, true. I imagine bringing Cooper off the bench, you're just like, oh my God, okay. I don't know, Sears comes off and Cooper comes on or vice versa. Just like, oh my God, this is like, talk about a change up that you really have to take a second to figure out how you're going to adjust.
Yep.
I think from that standpoint, Cooper's a great addition. Her teammate, Mike Watts' favorite young player in the NWSL, Claire Hutton.
There we go.
Also makes this roster. She was on my 17 of 21. Cooper was not. Cooper was a surprise for me, but was really excited to see Hutton on this list. We all saw what she did last season, playing with adults, playing like an adult, playing like a seasoned adult. This feels like an escalation of, let's see how good Claire Hutton is. Let's put her on with some world-class players. I feel like she's really going to get minutes in this tournament just because A, she's earned it. And I think she has a chance to really be productive with these. I don't know. Like, I think there's something brewing here around Claire Hutton heading into this tournament.
I think that's a great call. 19 years old. Again, similar to her teammate Cooper for Kansas City. First ever call up to the senior national team, but played on the youth level for years. One of the most impressive rookies in the league. Obviously, you show up in a class with Croy Bethune and Ali Sentnor. It's going to be tough to really stand out, and she still did. She was a productive player for one of the best teams in the league. She was 6th in the league in tackles won, and then she was tied for 10th in goal-creating actions. The players she was tied with are Oli Sarr, Mallory Swanson, Ashley Sanchez, and Rose Lavelle. Not bad company for a 19-year-old defensive midfielder.
It seems not possible, but yeah, I mean, she had such a stellar start to the season, and I think when she got back in was great as well. I don't know, I'm very, very excited about the Claire Hutton era kicking off here. But Hutton, not the youngest player on the roster. That distinction goes to the supernova, Lily Johannes. I mean, I don't know if any show's been following Lily as closely as we have. What do you think is available? What do you think are the next steps for her? What can Lily accomplish in this tournament that could represent another step forward in her international career?
That's an interesting framing of the question. So the first thing I wrote was, and this, yeah, follow me on this one because this might sound pejorative at first, but the first thing I wrote was, remember when we were super excited for Johannes to make the roster? But that's not me saying we're not excited now. Mm-hmm. The way I look at it now is she's a no-brainer. She has to be on the roster.
Yep.
So you're framing it like, what does the next step look like? I think it looks like she comes onto the pitch and hopefully she starts a few of these matches and gets like 60, 70 plus minutes as long as the legs allow, as long as she felt good, traveling over from the Netherlands. But yeah, I think the next step of the progression is she goes in there and she makes key passes and she plays good defense and she plays like we've seen her play at Ajax. And I think she can do that on the international level, even at this age.
That's a great point, because maybe the next step also includes the development of some new chemistry.
Nice.
Because when we saw her versus Korea, it was like the ball finds me and like now I'm just read and react and making the right play. I mean, figuring out who Lily can, kind of pair with. Maybe it's a Michelle Cooper, or maybe it's, I mean, who knows? Like, I think there's some options there, but I would love to see that as well. Obviously, impact on the game, making key passes. And then obviously we already know what she's capable of defensively, but it'd be cool to see kind of like a little back and forth, maybe Macario, maybe, I don't know, like there's definitely some options there. And speaking of Macario, I don't know, is it too early to say that, maybe the comeback is fully, cemented and now we're past the injury phase of Macario's career and now we're getting into like re-peak Cat Macario?
I don't know if it's too early. It definitely feels like we're approaching that point. So she has 5 goals and 3 assists between the Champions League and the WSL this season. I know she also has at least 1 goal in the League Cup, but like those stats are like tricky to find and add with everything. Not all this stuff's in FBref. Not all this stuff is in FootMob. So we're always kind of trying to piece them together. So she started 5 of her 13 appearances for Chelsea. When she played your Gunners on January 26th, she played a season-high 76 minutes, and that was sandwiched in between 60 minutes versus West Ham on the 19th and 62 minutes against Villa on February 2nd. And then she played 70 minutes, I want to say that was on like February 9th. So she is gradually inching up in the minutes. And I tried looking for the quote. I couldn't find it. I know Emma Hayes has talked about some of the dangers of when you are taking these transcontinental flights and you are going back and forth, and then you hop off the plane and you get to training and you start to play. And obviously, Emma Hayes is not a doctor. She mentioned that, but like, could this be a factor in some of these ACL injuries? It's hard to say. The research is still ongoing, but it definitely feels like Bon Pastor and Chelsea's medical team are comfortable with her playing more. Mm-hmm. Now we want to see what happens after the transcontinental flight. Now in the care of Emma Hayes once again, how's she going to play her?
Yep, definitely excited to see that. Looking at the schedule, it looks like USA's got Colombia. A few days later, it'll be Australia. And then 3 days after that, Japan. So it's February 20th, the 23rd, and the 26th. Now, Australia and Japan have announced their rosters. I mean,
pretty good.
Pretty good. Good way to put it. They're bringing some big guns. Looking at Australia, Mary Fowler, Caitlin Ford, Haley Rosso, Kyra Cooney-Cross, Ellie Carpenter, Steph Catley, Claire Hunt, Alana Kennedy, and 18-year-old Daniela Gaelic, who we saw play for Twente. Mm-hmm. That's a real roster. You look at Japan. I mean, Australia's 15th in the FIFA rankings. Japan is 8th. This Japan side's loaded to Yamashita in goal, Riko Ueki, who's been balling for West Ham, Mina Tanaka, Maika Hamano, Abo Fujino, Yui Hasagawa, Hinata Miyazawa, Minami from Roma, Saki Kumagai, who just moved over to London City Lionesses, Narumi Mira, who you've talked a lot about on this show, and a player who we'll get into very soon here, 19-year-old Momoko Tanakawa, who almost exploded the internet today.
Yeah.
And then Colombia, 21st in the FIFA rankings, which I don't totally agree with. They're behind teams like Belgium, Austria, China, South Korea. But they've got a roster as well. Linda Caicedo, Mayra Ramirez, Lacey Santos, Pavi, Gata Usme. They haven't announced their roster, but we can expect those players and perhaps also 19-year-old Ana Maria Guzman, who plays for Utah Royals on loan from Bayern Munich as well, who made a little bit of a splash at the 23 World Cup. So I'll be excited to see what Guzman could bring to the table here. But 3 legit rosters. When you see those 3 teams and the players that will be suiting up, what's your first impression there with regard to the comp?
I think we've talked about it ever since you and I really started closely following the 23 World Cup. Like when we started bonding over this sport together. Japan's awesome. I love the way they play. Yeah. I love the players. I love the mix of creativity and passing. The defensive organization.
It's funny because like when we first started watching, we're like, oh, this seems amazing. I didn't know any of the players, and now I'm like, right. Now I know all the players. I'm just like, oh my God, like they're so loaded. And they're still spread out. Obviously we're not covering the Japanese league, but they've got excellent players in all of these various leagues at various different stages in their career. Yep. And it makes for like a really nice makeup of a squad.
100%. And they, even though it's a great point that even though they are kind of like distributed throughout the world, they still play so cohesively. And it's because they very clearly have the same footballing ethos, even on their individual squads and how they fit in. Like, they don't really have to change their individual play when they come together and play for Japan. So they're just, I mean, anytime they're available to watch, I watch them play. It's just one of my favorite teams in the world.
Am I crazy to say that Japan kind of reminds you of the Warriors?
Ooh, that's
in the sense that, like, it's all motion. It's just so much motion. It kind of keeps your head spinning. Before you know it, somebody's cutting behind you. They're wide open. And then the pass that kind of slices through the defense is on point, and now they make you pay pretty dearly. I don't know. A lot of Warriors crossover, a lot of Warriors DNA, I think, in how they attack. What about Australia or Colombia?
You know, Colombia is always going to play you tough. They're always going to play you physical. They have the blazing speed of Caicedo. They have the physicality of Mayra Ramirez, the brilliance of Lacey Santos. They have, you know, a wide array of ways to slice you open. I love the way their schedule works out, too, where their first match against USA is going to be in Houston. Mm-hmm. And then their second match is in Glendale, Arizona. Third match is in San Diego. And no matter where you go in that general region of the United States, whether it's men's or women's football, the Colombian fan base is going to show up. It's going to be a party.
Yep. It's always a party when Colombia shows up. And I think now that they've elevated the football to like the level of like how hard they party in the stadium, I think it's kind of like a double or triple whammy. It should be really exciting. Nice. 4 good squads. I just kind of want to see what these teams look like. We've obviously got the World Cup right around the corner. It's interesting to see the age profiles of the U.S. team.
Yep.
And obviously, you know, Lynn Biondolo's, she makes a squad. Crystal Dunn as well. But for the most part, a lot of mid-20s and under. So I think we're starting to see a little bit of a turning of the corner.
Yeah, that is a great point. I mean, so what? You have Crystal Dunn, Emily Sonnet. Then you have Lindsay Heaps, formerly Lindsay Horan. Mm-hmm. Congratulations, of course, on the nuptials. And then Lynn Biondolo on the front line. And then a lot of kids, really. I mean, and, you know, we talked about, like, Macario, she's 25, I think. Mikiona is 25. Sam's is 25. But just kind of lacking a little bit of that experience. So it's a great call out on the age profile. We didn't even mention the Thompson sisters coming onto the roster to play. They're both young players. They're both exciting players. I just think every single match, Hayes is going to put a roster out there where you're going to go, okay, here are 2 or 3 spots. I want to see what that's going to look like on the field. How are the 1-2s going to look? What's the chemistry going to look like? There's just not going to be a dull moment in this tournament.
Yeah, it kind of gets me thinking, too. Obviously, no triple espresso in the lineup. No espresso whatsoever. It does create a scenario where I'm not sure if it's either Jaden Shaw or Macario or Yasmin Ryan, Emma Sears, Sentnor, who we've talked about, Alyssa Thompson, who's looked good, but, you know, has had her limitations, you know, especially playing internationally. But like, we could be heading towards a small rattling of the apple cart where it's like, okay, we know triple espresso is a thing, but this player, whether it's, I don't know, maybe it's Yasmin Ryan, maybe it's Alyssa Thompson, this player is now making it. I don't know if we go to quadruple espresso. I don't know we might have to check with trademarking and licensing and legal to figure out what we do there. But I think my main point is there might be an opportunity for somebody to kind of say, hey, I'm here, and I think that I'm now the tip of the spear. I think I'm the one that, you know, needs to be the featured offensive attacker in this, and everything else is going to slot in around me. Big talk from my imaginary hypothetical, but I think it's possible. I think it's possible that somebody kind of really, really breaks through, especially with all 3 on the sideline for the tournament.
Yasmin Ryan looked awesome in those 2 friendlies versus Iceland last year. I mean, you know, whether she becomes the 4th shot of espresso or however you want to look at it. I mean, she could absolutely crack the rotation. I don't think there's any question about that. I know we had talked about, too, what does it look like if Alyssa Thompson then plays on the left wing? Could you possibly slot Mallory Swanson in to play the number 10 role with Sophie Wilson, formerly Sophie Smith? Congratulations on the nuptials to her as well. Now you have Sophie Wilson up top playing number 9, Rodman on the right, Thompson on the left, Swanson at number 10. But then what do you do with Kat Macario? These are what you call those good problems for Emma Hayes to have. And I'll throw this last part out as a one take on the roulette wheel. Let me see some Ali Sentnor number 9 minutes. That's what I want to see in SheBelieves Cup. We got to see it.
Let's go. Dying to see that. That, you know, actually, that might be the name I might have skipped over, but I think that was the name that originally got my wheels turning. It's like, well, what if Sentnor comes in and just like scores 4 goals in 3 games and like big goals? I think that might get people talking, which I'd be very excited about.
Sure. I just want to do one more thing here real quick. Because we're a sports show and we're on the internet, I have to inject a little bit of negativity, if you can believe it. And maybe not that much negativity, just a healthy amount, right? A little medicine with all the sugar. Hal Hirschfeld should be on the team. I don't know if she's not healthy. I don't know if she has something going on, whatever. Absent of that, she should be in the squad. Maybe not to the degree of Lily Johannes in the sense of she has to make every squad from here on out, but she's definitely not that far off. Hirschfeld should play. You could play her at 6 or you could play her at 8. I know we've talked about it. I envision the double pivot defensive midfielders with Johannes and Hirschfeld. I think that could be absolutely dynamite. I know Sam Coffey is on this roster as well, but I just need to put out there into the universe. If you're playing these kinds of tournaments, I think Hirschfeld should be in the squad.
Yeah, no disagreement there. I'm just checking out the midfielder roster. It's a stacked room. You do wonder if there was an injury there. Obviously, you're not the only player missing when you think about, obviously, we hit Triple Espresso. No Rose Lavelle, no Naomi Girma, no Casey Kruger. You can think about an Ella Stevens or an Ashley Sanchez. There's a couple more names that maybe were right in the periphery. So not sure what's going on there, but would definitely love to see Hirschfeld in the mix going forward as part of like one of the core pieces in the midfield for sure. Especially because I think we're not really there yet from a midfield standpoint. A lot of young talent, obviously, like a couple teenagers, heavily featured, a couple players in their early 20s, whether it's a Jaden Shaw or a Corbin Albert.
Anybody who wants to ask in the comments, feel free. I'll just answer it right now. I would take off Albert. I know they don't play the same position, but I think you have enough attacking players who could bounce between the midfield and the forward spot. I would remove Albert and put on Hirschfeld for anybody who's curious.
Yeah, I think that's the right call. I think, Albert, when you think about the attacking midfielder position, I mean, Lindsay's in there, Shaw's in there, Johannes is in there.
You could play Sentnor there. You could play Macario there.
Macario for sure. Sentnor, I'm dying to see Sentnor way up high.
Sure.
Or kind of on the, like as close to the goal as you can get it because she's just such a beast.
Right.
But Macario for sure. Emma Hayes got a lot of work to do. It's a hard job, but also an easy job, but also a really hard job.
One of those.
One of those. So I don't know. We'll be locked in. You already know. We'll have previews. We'll have recaps as soon as She Believes gets rolling. I want to switch gears though. Let's head to Europe, where some teams were in action. Today specifically, we're recording this Wednesday evening. We had 3 of the UEFA Women's Champions League quarterfinalists in action. I want to start with Barcelona, your squad, your beat. We're gonna mosey on over to your beat, who took on Madrid CFF in La Copa de la Reina quarterfinals. What'd you see in this one?
I think Barcelona did what they had to do. It was a dominant set-piece performance from Barcelona. In the 6th minute, and I know we always talk about with these juggernaut clubs, it seems like they're always playing to score within the first 10 minutes. And sometimes in some of those Champions League group stage matches, it's almost like Barcelona, Lyon, and Chelsea are racing each other to see who can score in the first 3 minutes. But 6th minute of this one, CGH from right around the center circle, right inside the center circle on the attacking half, hits a great pass to Marta Torreon, who then plays it in brilliantly to Eva Payor. Boom, goal, 1-0. Madrid CFF has to chase the game from that point. Never a spot you want to be in, but I'll say they held really tough. They kind of forced Barca into some difficult decisions. Payor would later miss a sitter that, like, I feel like she scores probably 85% of the time. She just jacked it way above the crossbar. But then, like, not too long after that, Torreon made it 2-0 with a brilliantly placed header of a great pass from Bonmati, which started as a short corner. I think it might have been CGH who played the ball to Bonmati. So they were just completely fooling Madrid on set pieces. And I feel like if they're in this kind of weird spot where the last few games people have watched them play and be like, something's not quite right with their attack, the best way to remedy that is to start watching the ball go into the net off of your set pieces. They're able to do that.
Yeah, I think Bonmati could have had 2, maybe 3 assists. I think she was definitely dealing. I don't know. Is the footballing world getting closer, like closing the gap a little bit? I think we're so used to Barcelona just coming out and thumping these teams that to see these games and contest so so deep into the match. And this is a Copa de la Reina quarterfinals matchup. This is like a kind of like win or go home. It's a match that they want to win.
Yeah.
And even not necessarily at full strength, obviously Barca's missing players, but obviously still super loaded. It just doesn't seem like the coherence is totally there. We had friend of the show MLS talk about maybe some of the fatigue, like maybe like
Sure.
from the international terms, that just kind of they haven't regained their composure or their rhythm or their chemistry, but it does continue to look like they're still winning, they're still in control of these matches, they're still getting chances, but it just doesn't look as clean as it did before. It doesn't look like it's coming as easy, and then you just kind of wonder, was it a system thing? Obviously Giraldo's out the door, some player movement, nothing big, but you move one person here, one piece there, and all of a sudden it is a different team. And I think this different team just kind of has very firmly a different feel from last year's team.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a different feel this year. I think it's hard to be as dominant as they were in previous campaigns. I mean, you always kind of see, you start to kind of inch toward less dominance, if you will. I mean, Giraldez is out the door. Now you have Romeu. Speaking of our guy, MLS, seems to not have much faith in Romeu at all. I think there are a couple Barca fans who are pals of the show who are not exactly fans of Romeu. Seems like they're placing some of that blame at his feet, pardon me. But I would say, even if Barcelona is 7%, 8%, 9% less dominant than they were last year, still win the Champions League, who still might win a quadruple.
No arguments there. We'll have to keep track of it. I do want to talk a little bit about a little tiny bit of news that made the rounds this week, having to do with our champions of Europe, Barcelona. Mapi Leon, there was a situation.
Yeah.
The cameras caught Mapi kind of gesturing, kind of flicking at Caracas's, nether regions in a way that is not something that we want to have allowed, in professional sports. A whole lot of kind of like back and forth. The internet was ablaze a little bit. Mapi put out her own statement. Espanyol put out their statement. And I want to kind of to read a quick little bit here. So from Espanyol's statement, I pulled this bit that I thought was important. Quote, although Caracas was unable to react at the time due to the impact of the situation, later, after assimilating what had happened, she became aware of the seriousness of the gesture, but chose not to react angrily in order to avoid a disciplinary sanction that would harm the team. So when I see that, it looks like there was an opportunity for Caracas to maybe clear the air, confirm Mapi's position, which was basically, hey, I smacked her in the leg and this is a whole lot of nothing. Caracas didn't do that. Espanyol didn't do that. They seem to be standing firm in the position that, Caracas was wronged. Mapi was in the wrong. Behavior like this doesn't belong in the sport. Where do you stand on kind of like, I don't know, a ton of information? It's tough to know exactly, like what happened where and where to go from here. But I don't know, where did you land on this, or where are you at currently on it?
I'm glad you highlighted that part of the Espanyol quote. So I won't speak for you, but I feel like we're generally aligned on these things. That part of the quote would indicate that they spoke to Daniela Caracas and she indicated that's what happened, that she was inappropriately touched by Mapi. And so when that is reported, it is my inclination to believe the person who has reported that has happened. And so that's pretty much my stance. And so if Caracas says that she was inappropriately touched, then I believe her. And if that is the case, then the Federation has a duty to protect its workforce and enforce some kind of match ban. And for me, it's really as simple as that. Until we hear something else from Caracas, and at the same time, this thing is so complicated that until we hear from Caracas, that's kind of where I stand. But I also understand if Caracas never wants to relive that again or never wants to talk about it again, that's absolutely her prerogative. So my initial reaction is to always believe the person who's reporting, because there's just data upon data upon data that shows that the vast majority of people who report things like this are telling the truth. And so I believe her when she says it, and I hope she's doing all right and able to recover from it.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what the league does, what the club does, because obviously this happens to have taken place in Spain with has a not so distant history of sort of like shenanigans and just kind of things that just have to get cleaned up and out of the game.
Yeah.
And I don't know, even if, Moppy kind of, like did kind of smack her in that leg or inner thigh or whatever, just don't do that. Like, just play ball. Like, you're a world-class player, like on a world-class team. It's like, I don't know, why put yourself in that position? There's just so many different ways to kind of like try to implore some gamesmanship into a match. Just a bad look all the way around. Hopefully, I do hope it reaches some resolution though. Mm-hmm. I don't want to see a story like this just kind of like drift off into the annals of internet history. I do want to see something happen from the league, from the club.
Yeah.
And, there just be like a sort of line in the sand where it's like, all right, well, this can't happen.
Yes.
This can't happen at this level if we're trying to build a professional league. And it's just unbecoming of the level of where these players and organizations are at today. Like, it just can't, it really shouldn't be in the league. It's kind of like some YMCA type shit that we just can't get. There's some LA Fitness type shit to make it a little bit more of a modern reference. Barcelona back in action on Sunday and actually play Madrid CFF one more time, this time as part of the Liga F proceedings. So we'll be locked into that one Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. A couple other UEFA Women's Champions League quarterfinalists in action, though. We'll head to Germany, battle of the heavyweights, Bayern Munich, Eintracht Frankfurt, two teams just lounging at the very top of the Frauen Bundesliga table, going at it as part of the DFB-Pokal quarterfinals. This one was a banger. As mentioned, both teams sitting on 35 points, 11 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss for each of them. Goal differential, this is, I think, where Eintracht really kind of separates from the pack. They're plus 43 to Bayern's plus 26. This one, chippy to start, goes into halftime 0-0. The Jovana Damjanovic, what she did to send this one to added extra time. I mean, Bayern's down 1-0, 89th minute, headed toward the absolute death of the match. Clara Bull,
nice,
put in an absolute screamer of a cross. Like, you could barely see it. Like, just watching. Like, you really had to be locked in to kind of see that thing. And Damjanovic, in live action, you couldn't tell what happened. You just kind of see the ball just like boom, and now it's in the back of the net. You watch the replay, Damjanovic like kind of sprints into some empty space, gets some air, employs some vertical leap, rotates, gets a chest on it, and just an absolute perfect redirect. Like, just wizardry shit, total magic, 1-1, ties the game, sends us on the path to added extra time in just the most exciting of fashions. What do you think when you saw that goal?
I'm glad you talk about the absolute bullet of a cross and then describe it as a redirect. Redirect is also a football term. I'm going to make a very probably niche old man reference. When we were children, there was a time where Fox in the United States of America had hockey games, and they decided to create this trailer, like whatever it was like a red glowing line to show the puck. It might have been blue. It might have been like a blue trail when somebody would like rip a slap shot to help stupid American hockey fans follow where the puck was. In that instance, the ball could have used that little trailing technology that seemed like it was amazing in 1998 to show where the ball was when that cross came in, and the way Damjanovic was able to chest it and redirect it into the net. I mean, it was an incredible play on both ends. Just the presence of mind to be like, oh, it's already on me. This is my only option is to chest it in, and she did it perfectly.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, it was missing that the cartoonish sound effect of pew, pew, pew as the bullet just kind of bounces around the room.
Exactly. And
then in added extra time, Bayern goes bananas. So it starts with Bayern introducing Momoko Tanakawa into the lineup, 19 years old. You talked about her and her exploits at Rosengard, just kind of scoring all the goals and just kind of dominating. Now she's at Bayern. Didn't take her very long at all. So, I mean, she gets a nasty, I don't know, and one mixtape kind of shit. Kyrie, like however you want to think about it. She crosses over like 3 or 4 defenders, finds a little bit of space near the end line, puts a cross into Glodis Perla Vegas Dotier, who puts Bayern ahead 2-1. Tanakawa comes back a couple minutes later, buries a fucking laser. I mean, my favorite type of goal, just the kiss on the bottom of the crossbar to bounce straight down. Mariona had some bad luck last weekend on one of those. Tanakawa buries it, basically ends the match 3-1. Damjanovic gets her brace 5-6 minutes after that to make it 4-1. A lot uglier scoreline than the game, than really what the game was about. I think the game was really heavily in contest, and Frankfurt was up 1-0.
Yeah.
Frankfurt was up 1-0 with 2 minutes left in the match.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it was definitely much closer than 4-1. But to see Bayern turn it on like that, especially without Georgia Stanway, and some new injections into the lineup, I thought that was pretty encouraging. I'm not sure if that necessarily means that, hey, in the Champions League, they could give a team like Lyon problems, but now I don't feel like it's as easy of a cakewalk as I did after the draw.
I think that's fair. I think, if Tanakawa is going to play like that, then, it's not going to be easy for anybody playing them. I mean, we talked about Lyon's defense, absolutely incredible. You know what time it is with all their skill players. But, we're talking about Bayern Munich here. They have players all over the field that are absolutely fantastic. It'll still take a Herculean effort for them to get past Lyon, but, it's not going to be from lack of trying or lack of skill.
Yeah, and I'm now in the camp of, the 2 seed gets the opener at home. There is a chance that Bayern can go back to Lyon either level or within one, or maybe if everything breaks right, maybe up a goal. Like, if maybe they can squeeze out a 1-0 or something. I mean, it's interesting. Like, I feel like offensively, they're almost too much of a perfectionist early in the match, and in added extra time when things were a little looser, and now the ball's kind of like pinging around and it's kind of going like left to right and it's switching and there's just more movement and less structure. I feel like Bayern looked a lot better, and I'm not sure if that means that they're going to be able to unlock something. But now I definitely feel like on their best day, they could beat a team like Lyon or draw a team like Lyon if they're playing at home.
Yeah, I mean, it's not crazy. I think it's absolutely on the board that they could walk away from that match with a draw. But then you got to go to Lyon and play. So I don't mean to downplay them after an exciting 4-1 victory over their rival Frankfurt, who they're fighting for the league with. But you got to keep on building if you want to beat Lyon. But that doesn't take anything away from today's win. And Tanakawa, 16 goals in 20 appearances in the Damallsvenskan, Golden Boot winner in that league, and just says, okay, my summer football's over. Now time to get back on the proper European calendar. Let's score some goals for Bayern Munich. I mean, she's a superstar, dude. 19 years old. She cannot miss.
Well, we might be able to get some Tanakawa minutes in SheBelieves, so that'll be something to look forward to as well. Wolfsburg also in action as part of the DFB-Pokal. They made the trip to Hoffenheim to take on 6th place Hoffenheim in the Frauen Bundesliga. They look like the better team today. The results kind of aligned with that. But I don't know, Wolfsburg, no Lynette Bjornstein in this one. Not a ton of bite to their offense. I think they got some chances, but I don't know. You kind of expect a team like this to be able to string together more opportunities, more possession, more control of the match. I know they were on the road, but I don't know. They didn't have any grasp on this match whatsoever. They were really kind of hanging on. It took on the feel of a coin flip type match. I think they would have been really excited if they were able to get through.
Yeah.
But yeah, their string of 10 straight DFB-Pokal championships, that string comes to an end. But I think more importantly, Wolfsburg, I'm not quite ready to call it a wobble, but I don't know. They're not necessarily firing on all cylinders out there.
No, I think you nailed it by saying Hoffenheim looked like the better team. They started pressuring Wolfsburg early. Like they had to kind of scramble back there on defense multiple times. And the strike from Arleta Mehmeti was right on point.
Perfect.
And the pass from Grabowska was absolutely fantastic. To turn and fire it in there up to Mehmeti was absolutely great. They took advantage of the biggest moment of the match. They probably could have scored 2 or 3 in this one, but Wolfsburg was barely kind of hanging on by a thread. So yeah, you got to try to get into some kind of rhythm. Your next matches in the Champions League are against Barcelona. So I'm sorry, Wolfsburg. I just don't see how that's going to work out for you. I mean, looking at their subs, you mentioned Bjornstein didn't play to start. They bring her on in the 66th, along with Pettimors. They ended up bringing on Blomqvist. They brought on Endemann. They ended up bringing in Hegering. They tried to throw everything they could at the end of this match, they just didn't have enough. And to see that 10 straight DFB Pokals streak end, that's obviously an incredible run in a cup competition to win that many in a row. It's absolutely insane. 52 wins in a row in that competition comes to a screeching halt. Massive win for Hoffenheim. Should boost them, should buoy them for the rest of the season. I'm interested to see. We can watch it because of our pals on DAZN. I'm interested to see how the rest of the tournament shakes out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think Bayern probably in the driver's seat. I think it's safe to say that. From Bundesliga, though, we've got another tasty matchup coming up this weekend. How about Wolfsburg coming off this loss versus Eintracht Frankfurt coming off their loss? Mm-hmm. These two teams lock up 10:45 a.m. Eastern Sunday, 7:45 a.m. Pacific. Wolfsburg can pull even on points with a win here. They're still a good bit behind with regard to goal differential, but it's going to be interesting to see which of these teams bounces back with more vigor this weekend, because I think that's a big time for Bundesliga matchup coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, got to be locked in. Luckily, it's available on DAZN, so yeah, that's a must watch. And if you're Wolfsburg, if they go out there and just get cracked in this one, then I think we might be able to look at it. It's a full-on wobble. That's the last thing you need going in to play Barcelona in the Champions League.
Yeah, the very last thing. This weekend coming up, though, in addition to the matches that we mentioned, the other 5 quarterfinalists are in action this weekend as well. Lyon versus Guingamp on Saturday. Sunday, loaded slate. Arsenal versus Tottenham. City versus Liverpool. Chelsea versus Everton. And my Blancas take on Levante Badalona. I don't know if Badalona is Levante Las Planas or Levante. I got to figure out my Levantes. But they take on Levante Badalona. I Googled it. I couldn't get to the bottom of it. That one should be good. Excited to see my Blancos back in action. 12 p.m. Eastern and 9 a.m. Pacific on Sunday. All right, man. I think we did it. Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
I think we covered a lot of ground in this episode. A lot of things to discuss, like we said at the top. We appreciate all you guys rocking with us, of course.
Let's go. Yep. Absolutely stacked weekend of football in Europe, as mentioned. She Believes kicking off next week. We're going to be back with previews and recaps. We're also working on locking down some interesting guests to be joining the ITC. Very excited about that. As we approach the kickoff of the NWSL season, Challenge Cup right around the corner. March 7th, Orlando Pride versus Washington Spirit. March 18th, March 19th, UEFA Women's Champions League returns to action with the start of the quarterfinals. Can't wait for that. All right, man. I think we did it. This has been another episode into the channel. Thank you for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, like if you liked, and make sure you are kicking it with us. Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over your favorite podcast app. Links to all of our socials in the show notes of this episode. We want to hear from you. We love hearing from you. And a big thank you to my co-host as well, Mr. Grand Angle, for being my Yui Hasegawa to...
So I would be the Yui Hasegawa to your...
Yeah. And a big thank you to my co-host as well, Mr. Grand Angle, for being... What is it?
The Yui Hasegawa to my...
I got it. And a big thank you to my co-host as well, Mr. Grand Angle, for being the Yui Hasegawa to my Momoko Tanakawa. I appreciate you, bro.
Likewise, buddy. I'll try to live up to that moniker. Appreciate everybody for rocking with us. We will see you all next time. Go Birds.